stuff. Yeah, there we go. So you can go to YouTube or you can go to our Facebook. Go to 95.7 The Boss, or you can go 1690 AM. That's our original station. And if you want some questions, ask some questions on our YouTube page. If we want to make sure that everybody is included. We are a community radio station. We are a 501c3. And so our main goal is to make sure that we highlight those, especially those that are seeking leadership, or those health professionals, or those business professionals that can help our community grow. So introduce yourself, young man, and let us know why you're here today, and why you're running and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. William, thank you so much for having me back on. Last time I was here was in the morning. Yeah, like you said, we had about 15, 20 minutes, but now we got a little extra time. And there's not much time left. The election is on Tuesday. They're guessing about 50% of the people who are voting will be doing it early. They're saying the turnout's going to be about 57, 58%. For a midterm election, that's a good turnout. Those are good numbers for, that means that folks who don't normally vote are turning out. So we like that. There are a lot of big issues on the ballot. I think the huge one right now is voter ID. There's a really bad voter ID initiative on the ballot. And basically it is directly designed to disenfranchise voters of color and elderly people who are voters, because it's going to take away opportunities to vote early. It's going to take away opportunities for folks for whatever reason can't afford a state ID or don't have a state ID because they don't drive or what have you. And that was paid for, was bought and paid for by Governor Pete Ricketts, his mother, and a couple of their friends. They spent a couple $1 million to pay for signature people to get that on the ballot. And now it's on the ballot. And so anyone who's listening or watching, vote against the voter ID bill. That is a huge issue. That is set up to disenfranchise voters in North Omaha and South Omaha, tribal voters, et cetera.
Now, what does that bill actually do? What's the purpose of that bill? I mean, I know it's funded. They had to have petitions, right, in order to get it on the ballot, correct?
Yeah. So
so what's the actual purpose? Is so people got to have an ID in order to vote? Is that the main premise of it?
Yeah. So basically, right now, when you go to vote, let's say you vote by mail or vote early. If you vote by mail, they send you a ballot, and if you sign it and send it back in, your vote will be counted. You go in person, you sign the registry, your vote's counted. Now they're going to add an extra step, which is providing a state-issued ID. A lot of people don't have IDs, so those folks will be turned away. And frankly, I don't know how they'll be able to do vote by mail if you also have to have an ID. How are you going to show your ID? What are you going to show it to the postal delivery guy? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So the effect is going to be less people voting, and the most impacted are going to be the lower income, elderly, and voters of color. I mean, it's designed to do that. Why else would, the Ricketts family be putting in and you mentioned signatures, they paid $5 a signature. So these petition folks were getting paid $5 a signature. So imagine, how that gamed the system in terms of getting enough signatures. Meanwhile, the folks who were trying to get medical marijuana on the ballot, they almost got enough, but they didn't get enough because they couldn't afford to pay $5 a signature. So we have voter ID on the ballot, which is good. Which is bad. We have minimum wage on the ballot, which is good. We don't have medical marijuana on the ballot, so that's bad. So I'm just encouraging folks, if it looks like an innocuous thing on there, present an ID, that's not a big deal. It is a huge idea. It's a huge deal. And a lot of people are going to lose their right to vote because of this. So that's why I'm saying vote no on voter ID, vote yes on minimum wage. And, obviously in my race, I'm running for Douglas County attorney. There's so much at stake here with this race too. We'll start the narrative right here. 2020, we had the murder of James Scurlock in front of the Hive by Jake Gardner. The incumbent that I'm running against decided to not file charges against Jake Gardner. And then when the grand jury came back and said, here's 4 indictments, My opponent attacked the grand jury, attacked the special prosecutor, continued to divide the community. Then when he was legitimately criticized, he had a huge press conference in front of the election commissioner's office on October 7th. He left the Democratic Party. He joined the right wing of the Republican Party, and he endorsed Donald Trump in a press conference. And so that's who I'm running against. So many other things are on the ballot with this race. Whether it's reproductive freedom, whether it's, like I said, voter ID, criminal justice reform. Are we going to do anything about prohibition in this state? The fact that minor possession of drugs is still considered a felony, which means that so many people are being denied the right to get a job or get an apartment. And it furthers disenfranchises people.
Mm-hmm.
My opponent has stood against criminal justice reform. He helped to defeat the criminal justice reform bill this spring. I get in, I'm going to, champion criminal justice reform, make keep our streets safe, but do it in a fair, just, and equitable manner.
Well, give us a little background of who you are, because people see snippets of ads, but
Sure.
Who are you? Where you come from? Are you have grounds? I mean, you have connections here in the Omaha area, or did you move in?
Sure.
Give us a snapshot of who Dave is.
Yeah, I'll happy to chat about myself. So I live in Omaha, married to Jill. She's a Navy veteran. She served in the Navy for 10 years. Now she works as a nurse in the interventional radiology department of the Veterans Hospital at 42nd and Center. I have two boys, Miles and Lyndon. They're 15-year-old boys. They go to public high school in Omaha. And I'm not originally from Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was born and raised in New Jersey.
Okay.
The town I grew up in on the north is the town that directly to the north is the town that John Bon Jovi's from.
Okay.
Directly to the south, Bruce Springsteen. Up the road was Frank Sinatra. So that's kind of.
So you sing then?
That's the.
You sing?
No, it was all taken by those guys, and there was nothing left over for me. So instead, I got into politics and law. But that's where I grew up. I came to Omaha in the middle of the aughts, and my kids were born here right after I moved here. And I've been a lawyer for 26 years. I went to law school in Indiana University in Bloomington. I also got a master's degree in environmental science. So I've got a master's in science and a law degree from Indiana. And I've done a lot of work. Up here in North Omaha, representing folks who are facing eviction. Big thing that I do now is every Tuesday morning, I'm down in county court volunteering on behalf of folks who are facing eviction through the Tenant Assistance Project. It's a great program. I think I've talked about it before in this program, but just to reiterate, so prior to this program, 90 to 95% of people facing eviction would be evicted. We've gotten that down to 2%, which is keeping people in their homes, helping them get emergency rental assistance. Even if there's no other options, helping them stay just a little bit longer so they can get another location. We get them connected to social services and human, housing services. Because one thing that I think is really important in terms of crime prevention is rental assistance drives down crime. The more housing security there is, not just job security, but housing security. And Pete Ricketts, the current governor, we all know that he vetoed emergency rental assistance because basically the federal government had a new round of emergency rental assistance going to all the states. Pete Ricketts and only one other governor decided to veto accepting that kind of stuff. The Nebraska legislature passed a bill saying, no, he has to accept it. He vetoed it, and it was almost overturned, but they didn't get enough votes. So he's basically saying, let's have more crime because that's less rental assistance. It's not impacting Omaha and Lincoln just yet. It's impacting the rest of the state, which is going to put more pressure on local communities as well.
What is his argument? What is his argument for doing that?
Well, the way he said it was the pandemic crisis is over and we don't want to make Nebraska a welfare state. And I'm just like, this is not money going to people to help them, just frivolously spend. It's basically money that goes directly to
The
landlords.
Okay.
So this is actually
It help the economy, really.
Yeah, it's helping the economy. It's keeping landlords, even mom and pop landlords, getting their mortgages paid, and it's improving housing security. But that just got taken away. So that's why we need to elect people who have a sense of the bigger picture. It's not just about, oh, here's crime, let's prosecute it. It's like, how do we get to the root causes of crime, which involves housing security, jobs, education, healthcare, and I think a smarter approach to addressing things like prison overcrowding.
Yeah, without doubt. So why are you running? I mean, have you ran for office before?
Well, I served. Thanks for asking. I did serve a term as District 3 representative on the Metropolitan Community College Board of Governors. I got elected by the board to be vice chairperson. So I did that for 4 years. So that's, I think Metro Community College is a great institution in our community because their tuition is super low, and you can get a trade, you can get a certificate, all sorts of opportunities to get right into work. And so I really enjoyed that. But the fact is, you're one of 11, and it's a really great organization. But as Douglas County attorney, you can get in there right away and make huge changes to benefit the community. What inspired me to run? I think certainly the events of 2020 that I described earlier, with the murder of James Scurlock and how all that came down in terms of my opponent's reaction to it, then him switching parties, and all of those things made me feel like, well, someone needs to run. And I kind of was asking around, like, hey, are you thinking of running? And will you consider running? Talking to other folks, and a lot of them just said, hey, Dave, maybe you should do it. You've been involved in campaigns before. I worked on Carr Eastman's campaign, for example. Dave, you know how to raise money, you know how to build a campaign, and so I talked to my wife Jill, and after I learned that my opponent was running for re-election, and I talked with her and my kids and the rest of my family, and they said, yeah, you should go for it, do what you can. We knew it was going to be it wasn't going to be easy to run against an establishment institution, someone who's been in office for 16 years, but we felt like Jill and I felt like the issues related to justice were greater than any one of us. So despite all the risks of running for office, having to raise money, build a team, work 16, 18, 20 hours a day, give up time with your family, it's worth it to make the case that that Douglas County could be more fair, just, and focused on addressing some of these key issues. One thing that is huge is the fact that we have some of the worst racial disparities when it comes to incarceration and sentencing in Nebraska compared to the rest of the country. And you wouldn't think that, but these are real statistics, and I think a lot of that's driven by Douglas County, which is why when I get in, hopefully the election's next week, and I'd be getting into office in January, I want to hire an outside auditor to look at the Douglas County County Attorney's Office from a racial justice perspective. Let's get to the bottom of why we have such huge racial disparities. Why are some of the zip codes in North Omaha the most prosecuted zip codes in the whole country? We need to get to the bottom of this, because otherwise we're just going to be skating along and getting more and more unfair and unjust outcomes with prisons that are bursting at the seams, mostly people of color, mostly Black people.
Yeah, we know, being a former probation officer and being Black and growing up in the projects, I know both sides of the fence when it comes to criminal justice. Of course, there's responsibility on the community. However, there's still responsibility of those prosecuting those. And so diversion and other proactive initiatives need to happen, because sometimes people make decisions based off of the lack of money, and they might go steal some fruit or some bread because their kids are hungry. And should we punish that individual, or should we guide them? Because we have entities like United Way that can guide those individuals to resources
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we're destroyed because of lack of knowledge, and when we don't disseminate knowledge, then people are perishing.
Yep.
And it's so significant. And I've been saying it, since the beginning when Omaha World Herald came out with statistics in regards to the incarceration of Black males.
Yeah.
And so we're the most endangered species, and so something really has to happen. Of course, we do have some great some work out here, but we still can do a lot better.
Yeah.
What would you say day one when you're elected, you'll look at auditing
Right.
the department? Well, what else would you do?
Well, I think first of all, in addition to the audit, which is a huge deal, and I want it to be independent. It's not going to be an internal audit. This is going to be an external audit, and we will make sure that the results of that audit are made available to the media, to the public, and once it's done, I'll have a press conference, a town hall to answer questions about, and then hey, Dave, what are you going to do about it? What's the plan? So we're going to find out where the pain points are and address them. I think other things that are really important are, and this is something that's been talked about recently in the media, is the huge amount of turnover in the Douglas County Attorney's Office. Now, I've heard reports that over the last 2 years, anywhere between 30 and 35 deputy county attorneys have left. And that's out of an office of 62. So that's 50%, maybe more. Now, my opponent says, oh, it's been more like 20 attorneys. First of all, I just want to say, put your numbers on a website somewhere so we can actually look at this. The names of the county attorneys aren't on your website, so there's no way to know who's there, who's not there. It's unfair. The city attorney has names. Lancaster County attorney has names. Douglas County attorney, no names. So the dispute is between 20 or 30 and 35. We need to get a handle on the turnover, because I'm hearing from victims of sexual assault, other crime victims. I'm hearing from folks in the South Sudanese and refugee communities about cold cases. These are cases that are not being prosecuted because of turnover. So we need to get to the bottom of that. Are there management issues? What's going on? One thing I'm hearing is that you've got basically the Douglas County attorney, his chief deputy, and then there's the leadership is just, there's no position for advancement. I want to reinstitute things like the sexual assault unit and other units within that office, so there can be like a sort of leadership process where folks can get promoted. Their good work can be rewarded. We're investing in their training and their excellence because I think if we have well-trained and well-engaged deputy county attorneys, it's better for public safety. Another idea that I had, and we were at a debate, and I'll tell you what happened at this. One idea I had is getting deputy county attorneys more active and involved in neighborhood associations and neighborhood alliances, because really these neighborhoods are the key to connecting Omahans with each other and Douglas County residents. Let's have each deputy county attorney adopt one or more neighborhood associations, go to their meetings, listen to what's going on in terms of public safety or ideas, that kind of thing. So I mentioned that at a debate a few weeks ago, and my opponent said, well, I mean, that sounds like a great idea, but we don't have enough time, we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough this. And I said to him, I was like, wow, it sounds like you're really giving up, right? Like here's an idea that won't take much time. It's a great way to get your staff more engaged and involved with the community. It might improve their sense of, hey, this is a job I want to stick with, rather than just move on after a couple of years. But it's just sounded like he had given up. And I said, look, there's a major grant that's just been made available from the federal government for criminal justice reform. And that would be a great way to get money to maybe hire more staff, provide the numbers we need to do a better job in addressing some of these issues. But he just seemed like he kind of had thrown up his hands. So, I think that's part of what's going on here. You've got a guy who's been in office for a generation, if not longer. It's time to get some, I almost want to say new blood, but that's Carol Blood's slogan. So I'm not going to say that, but you get the point.
Thank you for that down. How can people get involved with your campaign?
Yeah, we're 5 days out, and you can go to davepantos.com. That's the website. You can hit me up on Facebook, Pantos for County Attorney. I'm on Twitter at dpantos, Instagram. We're on TikTok. And the big need for the campaign right now, we're going to have a day of action on Sunday. We're going to get like lots of people out knocking doors. So if you're able to donate like an hour or two on Sunday and help us knock doors, that'll be a great way to help out, because this is Nebraska, and regardless of where you live or where you come from, in Nebraska, folks really want to meet who's running for office. They want to know that politicians and office holders are trying to earn their vote. That's why I've been knocking doors ever since November of 2021. My team and I have knocked close to 100,000 doors throughout the county. And I don't see my opponent doing that. I'm not sure, but I don't see him knocking doors. I mean, you can kind of tell, right? Because you go into a neighborhood, if someone's been there, you start seeing their yard signs, you start seeing their literature. I've never seen any of his stuff, but you see my signs all over Douglas County. You see my literature at everyone's door. And so we haven't finished yet, though. We still want to put one more push in this Sunday. So if you can join us Sunday afternoon, we're going to be dispatching from my headquarters at 5015 Dodge Street, which is right in the heart of Dundee at 50th and Dodge. Come on out and we'll get you quickly trained and get you in a car, and we'll be knocking doors together.
You said 5015?
5015 Dodge.
Okay. All right. So this will go good on resume.
Yeah.
Also, community service hours. This is a way to get community service hours, school, especially those seniors that need to get some hours. This would be a perfect time, and you'll be learning the civic process. I mean, it's a great opportunity. And then also, if you mature and you want to get some exercise, this would be a great time to
get your steps in.
Yeah, get your steps in with a team of people. You're part of the democratic process. Now, being a county attorney, why is the you said potentially 62 county attorneys? How many public defenders are there then?
It's roughly the same amount. I think their budgets are not the same, but similar.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting because by law, the county attorney and the public defender, the head public defender, have to have the same salary. But what we're hearing is that they're, because of the turnover problem, they're having to jack up the entry salary for county attorneys. And the public defenders are mad about that because now they're getting paid more than they are. So that's not fair.
Yeah.
So we need to do something about that.
Right. Yeah, because public defenders, being a probation officer, and write precincts investigation, I should deal with the public defender office, and I defend the public defender office because they provide free service, y'all, and they just their caseload is high. So the best way is not to get a public defenders, not to get engaged with the criminal justice system if you don't want to criticize that system. But I stick up for the public defenders because they service the indigent, those that can't afford those attorneys. And so we got to make sure that those attorneys are paid equally, just like the prosecutor side. Or all the public defenders will go on the prosecutor side.
There you go.
And how's that going to be equal? How's that?
Not good.
That's not going to be balanced. And if I was getting paid less and we're doing the same kind of work, I would want to go on the other side too. Just let's do some common sense too.
Absolutely.
And so,
no, it's a noble calling, both sides.
Yes,
public defender, county attorney. I mean, you consider someone can graduate from law school, from a good law school with great grades. They can go to a big law firm like QTAC Rock or Barrett Home. Their starting salary is going to be, 110, 120, 130. Starting at county attorney or public defender, it's going to be a lot less than that. So you really have to be committed to serving the public on both sides. There are a lot of good folks who are doing that. And that's why I want to get in, is to invest in them and make their job more interesting and more desirable so they don't keep quitting. Because that's not just better for them, but it's better for the community.
Yeah, and then also we got to look at I mean, because they are. I mean, we got to make sure they're salary competitive even with the private sector. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
absolutely.
So like I said, there'll be less. They'll be less obligated to go somewhere else, especially if they're really passionate about helping those that are indigent. We
Absolutely.
want to keep those turning around.
Yep.
But if they need to feed their families, they got to feed their families.
Got it. Yeah.
Uh,
And considering the huge burden of law school debt, I mean, a lot of folks are graduating with six-figure law school debt. And it can be a burden. I mean, there is a public service loan forgiveness program, but you got to pay back for 10 years before you're eligible. And then, of course, speaking of student loans, I mean, the president had his student loan forgiveness program,
mhm.
10,000 or 20,000 if you have a Pell Grant. And the Attorney General, I think it was, of Nebraska joined 5 other states to get an injunction against that, and now that's being held up. So that's $10,000 that would have been in folks' pockets. That's not going to happen. So at least not for now.
Yeah. I think I heard something about that. It
Yeah.
might. I don't know. It's tough in the city, man. It's tough in the city. It's tough
You
in
got
the
it.
city.
You got
Tough. Anything else that we didn't discuss today that you want to make sure that we get?
Well, one thing I did want to talk about, and you, William, you touched on it a little bit in terms of the fairness associated with the kind of justice you get depending on your income or how much
Mhm.
money you have. And this is something I want to talk about because when I announced I was running, one of the things I talked about was bail reform. And, I have to say that is the one thing the certain folks on the right have attacked me for the most, which is bail reform. They say, oh, Pantos just wants to, let everyone out. And I mean, the current system it's so unfair that your ability to be free pending trial depends on your ability to pay. And I think that system needs great reform. We shouldn't have a system that basically results in profit for the bail industry. We need to come up with a better system that assesses risk and does so in a way that doesn't discriminate against people just because they're poor or working class. So I think something we really need to do in Nebraska, especially in Douglas County, is figure out a way to bring about bail reform. Now, there are some states and some jurisdictions that have entirely eliminated cash bail. For example, the federal court system in Nebraska has largely eliminated cash bail. And again, if someone has been arrested for a violent crime or they're at risk for flight, obviously those folks would not be released.
Yeah.
But everyone else who has little or no risk in terms of reoffending or fleeing, why should they languish in county prison or county jail just because they can't afford to get out? I mean, there's so many stories of why this is unjust.
Well, being a former probation officer, I know the stories. So like a driver under suspension. Sometimes they go to jail on the first time.
Yep.
Sometimes they might let them, it depends on who the officer is, or the second time. But when they get out third, fourth, fifth time, But there's still crimes where we shouldn't have to still lock people up and take resources from those that really need to be there.
Yeah.
Or MIP or I mean, make sure the children ain't drunk. Make sure they call the parents. Sometimes I think we need to use more community policing too.
Sure. Yeah.
We call the parents in and have to come pick the kids up and pour the alcohol out. I mean, everything don't have to result into an infraction. Sometimes it needs to be a teaching moment because children are gonna be teenagers are gonna be teenagers. You
Sure.
older folks, don't y'all remember when y'all was teenagers and y'all used to sneak around and do stuff? I mean, older folks really don't I don't know why y'all want to forget that y'all used to do the same thing, or y'all know friends or whatever. But we got to use some different approaches in order to decrease what we're doing.
Yep.
And I'd rather lean on teaching. I'd rather lean on teaching versus always coming down. Of course, we want to give shouts out to an officer that protected those individuals at the parade this weekend.
Yeah, heroic. Absolutely.
And so police are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Police are necessary.
Yeah.
And the criminal justice system is necessary. However, for those that may jaywalk or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or might be loitering somebody or trespassing and they shouldn't have been there, we gotta look at some different alternatives.
Yep.
And like I said, develop a risk assessment
Mm-hmm.
in order to get that done. And so you can have
You got it.
you can we try to create jobs, aren't we? So let's create some more jobs to some of the risk assessors that are working with the jail system, correctional system, and or with the police, so we can assess them real quick after they get booked. I don't know, but something needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is just building more and more expensive prisons. I mean, the next one is going to be up to $250 million. We're paying over $50,000 per prisoner per year, and our numbers keep going up statewide.
Mm-hmm.
Most other states, the numbers are going down. We can't continue to just go on the carceral path.
Right.
Where, and we need to get past the sort of 1980s, 1990s view on criminal justice. I mean, many other states and cities have moved past that. I think Nebraska can too.
Now, you mentioned the bail system, which is always the most important part of how individuals lose their jobs and stuff like that. Because they get arrested on a Friday, can't get out until Monday.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do different when it comes to the bail system? Because I know in Council Bluffs they have bail bondsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we can look at? Some other, like I said, some other approaches, so we can if we can't remove the bail system, at least have some alternative where people that are indigent can leverage that by having a bail bondsman system. And tell me, when someone pays the bail, where did that money go to? Who's that money go to right now? And then tell me if we can get bail bondsmen over here, that type of system over here.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up is, and you just made me think about it. There are now these larger nonprofit organizations that are helping to provide bail for indigent people, so that they don't have to go, because if you go through a bail bondsman, you're paying them a percentage that you don't get back.
Yep,
right.
Yep.
So you're out a certain amount of money already.
Right.
What if there was a nonprofit model where a nonprofit raises money from the philanthropic sector,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to provide, while at least we still have cash bail, provide that service so that folks aren't out that money. And the money's just raised through, from corporations,
Mm-hmm.
philanthropy, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, we've been all these casinos around here, this gambling stuff. Why can't we trickle some money? I mean, we got all this stuff. We got a lot of corporations that aren't paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Con Niagara, they didn't pay no taxes. They left. They owe millions in taxes. But we got corporations that aren't paying taxes. Why can't we get some money from them to help fulfill? I mean, so there's money always around here where people can share in their wealth, really.
Yep, I agree. And you can tie it to a job creation, because you're right. If someone can't get out, do a weekend, whatever, they might lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's more likely to happen? They're more likely to reoffend.
Yep.
And we don't want that.
Without a doubt, we want to create a snowball effect, especially when that person already made a mistake already. We want to keep punishing them and keep punishing them down the line. Omaha, the Burbs of Bluffs, we're talking to candidate for Dutch County Attorney Dave Pantos. Dave, where they can get in contact with you again?
Yeah, so you can go to davepantos.com. That's got a phone number for the campaign, email. You can sign up directly on the website, or you can hit us up on Facebook at Pantos for County Attorney, at Pantos for County Attorney. Instagram, on Twitter, we're at dpantos. Like I said, we're on TikTok, we're all over. Or you could just come by to our headquarters, 5015 Dodge, plenty of parking. And we're going to have a big day of action Sunday afternoon, knocking doors and getting out in the community. And I was knocking doors in North Omaha this past weekend, and the reception and support was overwhelming. One of my staffers said, Dave, it's like you're in God mode in a video game right now. Everyone's saying yes, they want a yard sign, they want to support you, they already voted for you. So there's a lot of support out there, but a lot of it's just like making that touch so that, oh, I didn't return my ballot yet, I've got to turn that in, or that person needs a plan on November 8th to vote in person, finding out like, how do you get to the polls, all those kinds of things. So participating now is really key. We'll get you connected right away. Also, for those who are listening who might have a little extra cash, you can also go to davepantos.com and donate to the campaign. All campaign funds are going to things like canvassers and yard signs, literature, digital ads, stuff that's directed towards getting out the vote. We have the numbers right now. We just need to get them to the polls, get their ballots in, and we will win.
Now, do you look at polls? So with that in regards to how you're doing in regards to the incumbent?
Yeah, so the early vote numbers are looking really good for our side. As I mentioned before, we're looking at 57, 58%, maybe 59% turnout. Looking at the makeup of those voters, it's favorable to us. So long as they turn in their ballots. So that's what we're looking at. I think it's going to be a close race. There's no question about it.
Right.
I'm running against someone who's already gotten $20,000 in contributions from Pete Ricketts. So we're fighting against the institution. But I think if enough folks show up, turn out, and get their ballots in, we will win.
Now, do you work with the other side? Will you cross the aisle? Because current politics is that people are in a trenches, Democrats and Republicans, and there's a lot of stalemate.
I think that's a really good question. And my opponent made this a partisan office in 2020 when he did his press conference in front of the Election Commission's office. He's next to Pete Ricketts. He's next to the elite of the Republican Party, and endorsed Donald Trump in front of the press. Earlier this year, he did a press conference in front of the county attorneys, or in front of the courthouse, endorsing Jim Pillen for governor in a contested Republican primary. So here's a guy who's jumped all the way in on the partisan side. As soon as I get in office, this will be a 110% nonpartisan office. I am running as a Democrat now. I'm proud to be a Democrat. But once I get in there, that is over. It'll be nonpartisan. You won't see those kinds of shenanigans from this county attorney.
All right. Anything that we didn't talk that you want to make sure we get across?
No. Once again, always my favorite interview, William King, and davepantos.com. And if you could join us on Sunday afternoon, please reach out to us on the website or on social media.
The address is 5015 Dodge Street. It's headquarters. What time they need to be there?
Anytime afternoon on Sunday.
All right. Omaha, the birds are blessed. Again, we're talking to candidate for County Attorney Dave Pantos, Pantos. Just in case you need to know how it's spelled, just Google him. If you want to participate, make sure you guys get in contact with him. We have to participate in the civil process, civil service process, whatever it is. Vote. The election is November 8th. Polls open up at 8 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. All right. Are you having a election party?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to join us, our headquarters are pretty big. So we're actually going to have our election party at the headquarters, which is the second floor of the building. We're going to have pizza and beverages, both for everyone and for grown-ups.
Okay.
So,
yeah. We have spirits and water.
Yeah.
How about that? How about that? A little bit something for everybody.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Without a doubt. So come out. Make sure you guys vote. Let's participate in the process, y'all, so we can be part of the change. All right. We're going to take a quick break. No, actually, we'll get back to the program. Boss with us.
Tune in to the Boss Morning Show with William King, Monday through Friday.
4 pumps vanilla, 1 pump cinnamon with an extra half shot, sweetened with agave.